QPR, QPR, these Park Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, QPR, now we're heading for European Cup.
Hello and welcome to QPR Podcast. I'm Chris Mendes. This week I'm joined by QPR Podcast regular Paul Finney.
You're right.
Making his podcast debut, long-serving QPR fan Alan Charles.
Hi there.
And making his QPR podcast return, former QPR striker, Tottenham Academy coach and BBC London co-commentator Bradley Allen.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming back, Bradley.
Pleasure.
We are now fifth in the table after beating Wigan on Saturday. What have you made of QPR starts the season?
I think it's been really good. I think the supporters can look forward to a positive season. I enjoyed covering the first home game when we comfortably beat Leeds. I think the result on Saturday at Wigan was very good on the travels, and I think the supporters can see that they've got a group of players buying into the manager's ideas, and they're much more organised, which is excellent.
Jimmy Ford Hasselbank described it as a grinder, the performance. You were there, Finney. How would you describe it?
It was a weird one because I reckon, now, Bradley, you're an ex-player and you've watched Rangers for years. Chris, you're Chris. There's something in the contract we have to play every first half now, rubbish. There's got to be, because we're like Jekyll and Hyde. You know, we come out, we really wound the manager up. He looked very upset with a lot of stuff that we're doing on Saturday. We also had a Clyde referee in it as well. I mean, some of the decisions he made, like he gave them a free kick, which was never a free kick. The guy dived so far ahead of where he was actually tackled, it was embarrassing. It should never been given. And then they scored a goal that they ruled out because he knew he figged up with a free kick. So it was one of them was, so why bother? Anyway, second half played really well, solid. Man of the match, easily by a mile, I thought was Hall. I knew his finish was very Les Ferdinand like back in the day. Took it well, placed it, done well. The support was pretty damn good as well. I mean, to get that many fans up there on a Saturday with a bank holiday, I was quite impressed. But the highlight was the fella who jumped in the canal afterwards, because we're all dandering down the road as you do. And
I was going to ask you about that. I can't really see who that is from the video. I was just wondering if it was you.
No, you're all right.
You're close by.
Yeah, if I went down to meet me skanks, like, it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good. It's right. I would seriously bring a new meal into belly flop. No, it wasn't me. But he did it in front of us, and I wonder if he was glowing the next day. Because imagine, like, you've seen those canals up north. I mean, and down south, doesn't matter. They're horrible, aren't they? They're full of, like, the shopping trolleys, whatever. And fair play to him. If you're listening, make yourself known on Twitter to us so we can talk to you. But that, because it's kind of like he did this whole like thing of like, you kind of think he's having a laugh. He's not going to do it. You know, he's taking the clothes off. He's gone down to his under. Yeah, he's not going to do it. He's gonna. Fucking hell, he's in the water. Jeez, and then he started doing this back thing and everything else. It's like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, that was good. Also, the thing I noticed on Saturday, which no one's talked about, is how much better Poulter's got holding the ball up. He just needs someone to come in. We were talking about this earlier on in the pub, but the rest of you guys weren't there. Sorry. And it's kind of like he has improved his game so much to the level where he's a totally different player now. I mean, he holds the ball up well. It's just a shame he hasn't got someone coming in to run on who can shoot, because if we had had that inside, he would have won that game 2 or 3-0, because we just lack that wee bit of someone coming in, taking the ball off Poulter, who's doing everything right, who is playing the perfect role that he should be doing to his ability. And I think also Luonga is turning into a really good midfielder. But Hall, Bradley, I don't know if you were at Spurs when he was there, but I'll be surprised if we keep on holding him after January, because he must be making waves elsewhere.
He's done really well, but I think, you know, we spoke about this the last time that I was on the podcast. The type of character, the player that QPR needed in terms of a more youthful player with hunger, understanding what it means to play for the club. I think now across the squad you've got that, and you've got players that want to prove their worth. If they get further opportunity, gain extended first team experience, I think the football club is going to be better for it, both on and off the field of play. I think these younger players are going to be of value to QPR again, and Hall certainly epitomises that.
Do you think he could be a future captain? Because he seems like he leads by example the way he plays.
Yeah, he's got a nice temperament. He's got this calming influence, and learning off someone like Anua, who I think has has hung in there, and he's of value now to this group of players. You know, he's a good professional. He obviously came into the club at a time when we were, you know, buying the wrong type of players, paying them far too much money. I know that that's been well documented, but he stuck around, and he understands at his stage of his career that he's still very fortunate to be rewarded, and I think he wants to give a little bit back to QPR, which is good to see, and I think the younger players are feeding off of that.
Yeah, we'd love to see him. Alan, yeah, I was going to say so you're making your QPR podcast debut today. We've won a couple of games, lost a couple of games. Since the last podcast, we've won a couple again. Is it glass half full or half empty for you?
Well, I think it's always half full from my perspective, and that goes back for 50 odd years of supporting the club. So I've seen many ups, many downs, and more downs than ups probably. But I don't know. I think things look a lot more organised this year. I know the results have been 50-50, but we do look like an organised outfit, and I absolutely echo the comments about Grant Hall. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think throughout last year he absolutely excelled himself. He was brought in as a squad player, but came through and really did a fantastic job.
This time last season, I know I'm kind of feeling optimistic. We seem like we're more difficult to break down. The first 2 games of the season, we didn't even have a shot on target against us, and against Wigan, only 1 shot on target. They managed at home when they're usually strong. But August the 30th, 2015, we were 4th in the table, so 1 position higher than we are now. And it was at this stage of the season that QPR really went downhill. Won 2 out of the next 12.
Listen, we're having a cup run and everything. Chris, this is not the time for being a realist or being a QPR fan. This is the time for dreaming. Sunderland at home, brilliant draw that. Actually, to be fair, the club have done well charging 6. I mean, who knows? We can maybe even get to Wembley. You never know. You do. But
the club have charged £6.70 for tickets.
Yeah, for the Sunderland, which I think is brilliant, and everyone should go. Everyone should go because it's a brilliant. Bring your kids.
It's a winnable tie.
It is. I think so.
They're going to play a younger team. I think we'll go strong, and home advantage. Good crowd. With reduced ticket prices. I think the team can look forward to that and really give a good account of themselves.
To be honest, I seen us lose in the LDV or Johnson Peter Trophy, whatever it was, to Southend, that final thing. So it'd be nice to have a proper cup run. Which these things are. I mean, we beat Sunderland. That's a Premier scalp. Then we can get someone else. That's another scalp. Then we beat someone else. We get Wembley. Yeah, it could be a Samora Day all over again. We need a new Samora. But the other thing is, by the way, that I forgot to mention about Wigan on Saturday. Maybe it's just because I'm Northern Irish, I notice these things, but there's about 6 Northern Irish fans in the corner who I'm sure just turned up in case Will Gregg scored so they could do the song. They were sitting in the corner. They didn't make any movement during the game, one way or the other, as if they were Wigan fans. So I'm just wondering if they've come over in the boat every week and just hopefully score they can sing their song. They weren't very happy when they left.
No.
But the newer one sounds much better, by the way.
Yes,
the new version of that, I think, is excellent. And well done to whoever started that on Saturday. You are a genius.
Bradley, one of your former clubs, Charlton, QPR signed Jordan Cousins from Charlton in the summer. I just wondered how you think he'll get on at QPR. Do you think he could be a player?
Yeah, I think he'd do well. He is that category of the player that we're now signing. Younger, looking to still prove his worth, but I think because of the fall from grace that Charlton have had, he's someone that's been thrusted into the first team. He's gained first team experience. And I think Rangers could be a benefit there, and I see a lot of potential in him. I think he's athletic, he doesn't miss many games, he'll get around the pitch, he's versatile as well and can play across a number of positions. Probably by his own admission he could score a few more goals if he is to play in a midfield role, but I certainly think that he'll be one that will warm to the hearts of the QPR supporters.
I know it's not our club, Bradley, to be fair, and I went when I first got here I ended up Lewis and living for a while and all that. So what is actually going on at Charlton? Because it's a bit scary, because that could happen to any club in the Championship, which is one level from the Premiership, but It doesn't look good, does it? And this drop.
There appears to be a breakdown of relationship, doesn't there, between owners and fans, which you can ill afford at any football club. And the lack of season ticket sales will affect Charlton this season. They're still classed as one of the bigger teams at League One, and they're expected to challenge. I do think that they've appointed sensibly in Russell Slade, who's experienced, who might be able to steady the ship. But they're going to be in for a challenging campaign because he's done some signings and hopefully they can have an impact on the squad and their performance this season. But there's every chance for the close of the window. One or two of their better younger players will be pinched from other clubs, and that is going to be a worry moving forward.
It's weird because no one's spent too much time on Charlton, but it's just you come into these people seem to come into the Championship club, one level from the Premiership, and then before you know it, you're in League One. And things are all different, and their ideas are all different. And why did the Football League allow these things to happen? I just don't know, because they couldn't have had a credible plan for that club. It's ridiculous.
Well, yes, and the fan base has been lost somewhat. That was built up over such a long period of time, having returned to the Valley. The progression made under manager Alan Kirbishley, up to the Premiership, back down, then back up, and then stabilising for nearly 7 years. Their crowds were plus 20,000. This season they could be below 10,000, halved. It's a terrible shame, and without those revenue streams coming into Charlton, there's no guarantee that they can sustain a challenge and make an immediate bounce back up to the Championship.
The gap between the Championship and League One, the Championship's it's just so much money in it now compared to what it used to be. Aston Villa signs
and the
on
size
15
of clubs
million
as well. I think that's the thing.
To be fair, Newcastle, I think, have changed the whole blueprint for the Championship this season. I don't think you could have foreseen that, and everyone's playing. We'll go back to talk about our club in a second, but what's happening at Forest is shocking. We might actually win there this year. All right, Forest fans, if you listen to this, you're on your own podcast, but I'm sorry for your plight. But we could actually win there. If we don't win at Forest this year, I'm never going back. That's it. I'm going to give it one more go. I'm going there. We don't win, I'm never ever going back, because there's no chance of actually winning there. Sorry. Chris, what were you saying?
Talking of signings, QPR, they announced it just before the podcast, a couple of hours before the podcast. You had mentioned that Poulter could do with someone alongside him. Idrissa Silla, 1.75 million. Good signing, do you think?
What's his stats on the fella?
Well, he hasn't got an amazing goal-scoring record. He's played in the Europa League, though, and he's played for Anderlecht. He's never scored more than 10 goals in one season. He scored 9 goals in 38 a few years ago, then 9 in 26. Last season he scored 7 in 35. So not amazing, but he started this season well. He scored 2 goals in 5 games. Bradley, have you seen much of him?
Yeah, I see him last season when they played Spurs, actually, Anderlecht. They have been a nation of developing young players and getting them to the highest level. He comes with potential. I think, he's sort of one of these modern day attacking players. I wouldn't class him as an out-and-out winger. Maybe if you play one striker that Rangers sometimes do, which is Poulter, you have 3 supporting players offering that, whether they come infield, one of them may be playing as a number 10 just off of the striker. And I think Silla can do that. He's dual-footed. I think he'll be eager to impress. It's a good chance for him. And no doubt that he'll have technical qualities that he can bring to the side.
And Connor Washington's been at the club for a little while now. He's played nearly 20 games, hasn't scored in the league yet. His confidence probably isn't as high as it could be. How do you think this will affect him? Another big name striker coming in?
It might just give him the jolt, the boost that he needs. I think, you mentioned Poulter. I think he's done tremendous. Why? Because he's played. He's been given a chance. He's had an extended run in the side. Now, at the start, he was not everybody's cup of tea. He was very hit or miss. But I think by playing football, all strikers will tell you, even if they're not in the back of the net, if they've got the faith of the manager, keep picking them, keep putting them in there. Eventually you'll get better. And that's been the case with Poulter, but not with Washington. I think, he's been rather disappointing. I think he can score, but maybe he's one that you need to play a particular formation and personnel to get the best out of him. Maybe a 4-4-2. Maybe he needs to play alongside Poulter and have a focal point in the attack, and he can feed off another striker.
Alan?
Well, I'm wondering, over the last months, Poulter's game has improved considerably, and he's become much better at holding the ball up and laying balls off to other players. Now, when you're playing one up front, that's not necessarily important, but he doesn't have those around him running through at the moment. So I think Washington should be given another chance, because if he was in there playing two up front with Poulter, I think he'd score a lot more goals.
I worry because obviously, I mention it every week, the Euros, they're great and all that monarchy, but Washington does seem to be a different player when he plays in the green shirt than he does playing hoops. Now, whether that's because O'Neill believes in him more than Hasselbank does or whatever, I don't know, or it's a strange one. But if I was Washington, the view I would have now is, well, if we're going to bring this fella in, and there's a lot of money to pay for another fella, that'd be with Washington's fee and his fee, nearly £5 million. You've got to play one of them each week. You've got to maybe go. This is the turning point. We actually go two up top.
Where QPR are at as well. That those transfer fees for both those players are quite high.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Floyd has sort of got to justify playing at least one of them every week. I think
you can't take Poulter out.
I think the thing is though, what we got to look at is how the team are playing, where maybe they play with an extra midfield player, a more conservative defensive approach, which has worked. But in some games, Jimmy Floyd maybe feels that he might have to open it up a little bit and sacrifice a midfielder and actually select and be braver, take risks and go for a second striker. And that's where Washington, I think, has to be ready in terms of selection if he's given that chance. And he's got to grasp it, whether it's him or if it's Silla to do that. I think in the coming weeks and months we'll find that out.
And does it make it more difficult to fit a second striker in there when arguably our best player is
sadly
Cherry?
Not many teams play 4-4-2, do they?
Yeah.
A way that they've done that, if you look at Conte with Italy in the summer, they played like a 3-5-2. So they played two out-and-out strikers, but there was a different formation behind them. I think it can be achieved, but what a lot of teams are worried about is being outnumbered in midfield, where teams like to play through the middle of the park. I think what it does give you an option, if you do have two up front, is hitting a longer pass. And someone like Poulter that can challenge. He's obviously got himself really fit. He's had a tremendous pre-season. He can back into the strikers. He can win a few flick-ons, but he needs a bit of help alongside him.
See, what worries me, if I'm being honest, is that I don't think, we talked about this before we were on the last time, kids or any player gets a chance these days. If they're not like Pelé in 3 games, that's it, binned. I mean, Bradley, you came through the youth system, you played for QPR, you literally would have had 45 minutes to prove yourself, and I fear that's where football's going now. You're literally judged on 45, 50 minutes. Les Ferdinand would not be a QPR player now if he came from Hayes now to QPR. He would have been binned.
Probably
and that's
not.
Sad.
But I think if you compare Les's situation and even the journey that I had in my formative years at QPR, I debuted at 17. I played 3 games when Trevor Francis was manager because they hardly had any players then. He was sort of enforced to give some younger players a chance. But I never played again for another 3 years. Why? Because I wasn't ready. I had to go back and play for the reserves. I had to develop my game. I had to improve. And then it was a change of manager, somebody different, Jerry Francis. He see attributes there and he was prepared to work with me. But then what then happened was there was different strikers there, so there was healthy competition for places as well. And I think eventually that's where you need to get to.
Bradley, you work with youth players, and there's been some changes at QPR in the last few years. Perry Suckling, Chris Ramsey, looking after it now. How confident are you that young players will start to come through at QPR, and how long do you think it will take?
It takes an awful long time. You need patience. You need staff that understand the players individually. I think that's the crucial factor. Spurs, Southampton, maybe are 2 Premier League clubs that have had huge success with that in recent years. They've had managers that believe in opportunity and pathway for young players, and they'll work with players with potential. But as quick as that, if they don't think that some of those players are worth persevering with, they're quickly dismissed, and then they'll get the next ones in. So it's up to the staff to see the potential in some of these players and work with them. You've got to do that religiously. That takes years and years, real patience, before you bear the fruits of that.
Most football fans will just see, they won't look too far into the youth setup at Spurs and QPR. They'll just see quite a few good young players coming through at Spurs and none coming through at QPR, how different are the youth setups at the two clubs at the moment? As just kind of light years apart.
Well, I think Spurs has certainly moved to a much greater level. We have a state-of-the-art training facility that's been in place for the last few years. That's helped recruitment enormously. We have some tremendous staff who work tirelessly with the players on the training pitch, trying to improve them, build those relationships. I think what's crucial for QPR as a football club and where they're at, they have to get a new training ground. I think that is so important. So they have a base to work from in West London, where they can, bring the local boys in, they can work with them, and then they understand the DNA and what it means to play for the club again. I've said this time and time again because I knew that when I first signed for QPR at 16, I knew as soon as I walked through the door at Loftus Road, I wanted to become a first team player. Now it took me a while to do that, but you've got to have the staff there. I worked with some tremendous coaches, the likes of Frank Simbly, people like that, who were ex-QPR people who themselves had been a part of the club. And hopefully, across the staff, good people in now, that the club will eventually return to some of those days, and we will finally be able to have somewhat of a conveyor belt of young players coming through.
One of the most talented youngsters at QPR at the moment, Cole Kipikawa. He's off on loan to Barnsley. I hope I pronounced his surname right there. But, do you think that's a good move? Would you prefer them to get more games at QPR? It didn't look like he was going to get games, so maybe it is a good move for him.
I get confused by the message we send out sometimes that we want to have more youth and we want to develop our own players, and then we send them somewhere else. You'd have to ask Les Ferdinand that question. He's probably a better person asking me. I would just like to see our own players. I don't get this loaning players in each division to other sides. It baffles me in the Premiership, and it baffles me even more in the Championship. I just don't get it. I just don't know why you would help anyone else in the same division as you. It didn't happen in your day, did it really?
No.
So I wish him well. Maybe he'll come back a better player. I don't know. It's just a very strange one. It's an interesting one because we've had a few youth team players come through in recent weeks, and it was something that I get slaughtered for saying this, because I know Steve Gallen and everything else, and people always say, "Oh God, you're in Gallen's side," and I'm not. I generally am not. But Steve was sacked for not bringing enough players through. But since he's been sacked, the players that he's brought through have played in the first team, and now one's off alone in Barnsley. And I don't know. I just find that strange. But they've got far more brains than I'll ever have. I'm sure they know what they're doing better than me. But I'd like to see them given a few games at QPR to judge the fella.
Alan?
Just going back to what Bradley said about having your debut and then going back to the reserves. The reserve league in those years was much more competitive than it is now.
Yeah.
Is there a view that says that the Football League needs to get back to having a proper reserve league, not these joke competitions that go on?
Well, that starts this evening, doesn't it? The EFL Trophy, where some of the Cat 1 Premier League clubs are entering under 21, under 23 teams. Is that going to work? I think if you're a lower league club, your team talk's done for itself, isn't it? You're just going to kick lumps out the opposition if they turn up, and some of them are rather big time. I think those days where you would play with senior players who needed to play to get back in the first team or returning from injury, it self-managed itself, and those younger players would benefit from having the senior guys around them, and that sadly has been lost. And I think between the age of 19 and 23 there is a void there. There's a lack of first team football across all levels that the younger British players are not getting, and that's not them making them prepared enough to make that natural step and progression into the first teams.
It's scary in some ways as well, because back to what I said to you when you made your debut, you said 17 at Rangers. People aren't going to get in your back straight away, but I mean we've all seen it. A young player comes on, Gregor Cox for instance, and everything else, does reasonably well, but people are straight on their back. Will he make it? They're judging him at that age, and you can't judge a player at 17. You really can't. I mean,
no, it's unfair.
How do you change it?
I think you've got to give minimum 50 to 100 games. I think
Okay.
then you start to get a clearer idea to the capabilities of that particular player, and then see if they can find that level of consistency required.
See, I'm stupid, I know that, but I always think if Andros Townsend is still at QPR, he'd had a much better career than he's had afterwards. That's my personal opinion, but because he would have been a better player, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the grass isn't greener. It's a tricky, because footballers are ambitious. They want to play at the highest level. It's like Charlie Austin. He was playing week in, week out at QPR, and he's kind of struggling to get into the Southampton starting 11 week after week, and he's one of those players that has to be in there. So, but with the youngster Cole, it's a tough one because Barnsley, we've played them already. They beat us, and they look like quite a decent team. They might challenge for the playoff position, so they might finish the season in a similar sort of position. As
I don't think they will. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get as many points on the board as possible with the youngsters they've got before the heavy end of the season comes in and they start picking up injuries. That's how I see it. I could massively be wrong and they could surprise everyone by doing a Bournemouth. Well, Bournemouth wasn't. Everyone talked about Bournemouth being a surprise. It wasn't really massively invested. It wasn't that surprising. But yeah, they're probably trying to get. But it just seems that I just don't get this loaning players as clubs in your league. It just seems mental to me. I mean, because can you imagine like that? You even though that player can't play against you, your manager, your boss phones you up. So who are you playing Saturday? Oh, this is awkward. How does it work?
And as well, sometimes some that you send out, they're not always a success. Some players fail, they struggle, they might not actually be ready for that change and going and gaining that experience at another club. So that again needs an understanding, patience. But there's always a benefit from it, wherever it might be. And whichever player, I think they're trying to get the goalkeeper who I had at Spurs, Joe Lumley. They're trying to get him. He nearly went to Gillingham, I think, last week on loan, and I think they're trying to fix him up with the club so he can go and play because he's probably at a level now where he's ready to do that and be challenged. And I'm sure there are one or two, and no doubt Les Ferdinand is continually trying to oversee that.
Do you remember the Graham brothers at QPR way back? Yeah. And Kevin Kingsmore and people like that? You kind of they stay at youth, they don't get the games, especially with the Graham brothers. They didn't get the games, and then they go off on loan and disappear. But they were breaking records at youth team. Look, everyone was talking about the youth team. So, can you hold a player too long at a club?
I think you can. I think sometimes you can judge someone better by throwing them out there and putting them in the deep end a little bit and see if they can stay afloat and that can harden a player, that can prepare them and almost microwave them and ready to then go and have a career. Because I think that's part of your role as well when you're talking about developing young players. Some might not be good enough for your first team, some might not be good enough for QPR and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, but what you've got to try and do is make them the best that they can. So if that player, having had them at the club from 12, 13, whatever years of age, they go on and they go and have a career in League Two, or they play conference, or they go and play Irish football, or wherever it might be, fantastic. And the small part that you've played in their development, I think there's success in that. You've not lost them to the game. But the problem that you're getting is not enough of them play, and then they get released at 90, and then they just go right through the system, and then they end up out the game. Massive percentage of players out the game. That's the problem.
But again, does that go back to the lack of competition when they're young?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think the level, the standard of coaching coincided with the games programme. I think they're the crucial factors.
And we actually won the Floodlight Trophy as well. Alan McCarthy was captain, and you didn't, did you? Did you play on that side? That wasn't a bad little side, that.
87, I think that was.
It was. Jesus, I'm old. Tell me you're still playing, please. Anywhere, Saturdays, Sundays.
I have a kick about with our young players now and again, but that's about it.
That wasn't a bad wee side, Lowen Furness, was it?
Yeah, you mentioned Kevin Kingsmore.
Yeah.
Greg Costello, Brian Laws, John Murray, Tony Roberts.
Was a Herrera part of that?
Robbie Herrera, yeah.
That wasn't a bad wee side. And also, I'll tell you another thing. Sorry, Chris, I know you're hosting. Sorry, mate.
No.
The other thing that always made me impressed as well is that when Rangers bring players through, they do it well. Goddard and Allen. Seriously, I love Paul Goddard, but that was such a good partnership as well. Could that happen again?
Maybe the problem that you have now, unfortunately, is if Rangers do have a little gem on their hands somewhere through maybe one of the younger age groups, they tend to perhaps get cherry picked by the bigger clubs.
It happened with Raheem Sterling.
Great example.
So you kind of almost want them at 15 not to be quite as good as he is, but kind of have a late upward curve. How likely do you think it would be if QPR had a brilliant player now at 15 that he would be poached by one club?
Maybe you can have and build a really solid relationship with the family and the support mechanism where you're saying, well, they're going to get a chance to play in our first team at a younger age, and we're going to make them better from that. We're not going to deny you a chance to be moved on and sold. But just trust us. Let us have the best interests of your son. We'll give them that chance to play first team football and flourish and get better and improve. And then from those experiences, then they're going to be ready to move and take that chance.
But it's becoming more difficult, is it, for
Absolutely,
clubs?
yeah.
Transfer deadline day tomorrow. Do we need any more players, do you think?
Yeah, we always need players, don't we, at Rangers? We don't buy players, we buy squads. Although we haven't really been doing that so much. Well, we did last season, we brought a few this year. Do you know what? I don't know anymore. I mean, it used to be when I was young, and you're older than me, sorry, Alan, and you're getting there, Bradley, and Chris, I hate you. You're too young.
I'll get there one day.
Is it? You used to bring in 3 or 4 players a season, didn't you? And that would be the balance of a side. I remember we signed Paul Wright from Aberdeen, and he did amazing things. Went back to school. You're too, but now I lose track of people. I mean, it's the age. I don't know. Has transfer deadline become just a big sky gimmick that clubs feel they have to just massively fill the ranks quickly to get Jim White talking about them? I don't know.
It's funny you should say that, Finney, that we lose track of people. QPR signed 5 people in August last year. Grant Hall, Alex Smithies. Can you name the other 3?
Your man from Huddersfield.
Oscar Goben.
Oscar Goben, of course.
Yeah.
He's still pulling trees for QPR, I believe. And
no, he's been released.
Was Emmanuel Thomas one of them?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, go to someone who knows what I'm talking about.
Alan. No,
I'm cheating if I gave you an answer. So.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's peering over my shoulder. I didn't know that before today. Tyler Blackwood. He's since joined
he's an American fella.
Arizona United. Tom Rosenthal, young guy who's from Belgium, he's been released as well. So, kind of backs up what you're saying. It seems like clubs just sign people for the sake of it sometimes.
Or sometimes I think we have a plan, and you know this better than I would, Bradley. Because you're a professional footballer, I drive a van for a living, so I'm just, not judging myself, but I am. Is it with Rangers? We seem to have a philosophy we go with. And then at the last minute we panic and then change all the rules and then go against everything we said for 3 months and then just fill the books with players again, which is this season we haven't really been doing as much, but we've still got a blinking massive squad for this division.
So there's a day to go. Who do you think?
What's that?
There's a day to go. Who do you think?
I don't know. I think we should sign Sandro. He looked great last week. I read that on Facebook. Give him another contract for another 2 years. Like, well, steady on. I don't know. I still think we need an out finisher. Someone like a Bradley, Clive, Les, Paul, Gary. Legends of the past. But I'd love to see us sign someone like Roy Wigley. That would get me back on the ground. But there's talk of Ravel Morrison, isn't there, coming back?
Yeah, it's one of those I think that could go either way. He's not had one whole season where he's been really consistent, so it'd be a bit of a risk. But
is he any good? I mean, he played for us. He was alright. He was decent, but he's not like Adele was. Well, I know Adele's up for, but let's not go down that road again. But what do you think, Brad?
Yeah, he's a maverick, isn't he? And I think players of that type, the club have had individuals of that calibre through the decades that have often shined at a club like QPR. But you need a type of manager, I think, to be able to deal with individuals like that. They're not easy. They're high maintenance. But they obviously, at championship level, like Adele proved, in working with Neil Warnock, he got the very best out of him and had magnificent success. Whether Morrison could return to these shores, I'm not so sure.
He's a great player, though.
He's hugely talented. He wouldn't have been at Man United as a kid if he wasn't any good. I think you've got to look at goal scorers. I totally agree. I think that will prove to be the difference come the end of April, start of May next year. The 3 sides that are there or thereabouts in terms of promotion, it will be the ones that have got the best goal scorers within their starting 11. And
do you think QPR have enough now to challenge for promotion, or do you think they'd need a couple more?
Playoffs at best. I'm positive that it would be an improved season on last campaign, but I'm not so sure if we quite got enough to get there. But you never know. There's always one team. You look at the flying start that Huddersfield have made, whether they can sustain it. They've got a good coach, bought well, a couple of young talented players from German football. It can be done. And like you say, if your recruitment's good, there are still a few gems out there across the lower leagues.
Yeah, Leicester showed it last season in the Premier League, shining example. And the manager in charge of Huddersfield now was worked under Jurgen Klopp at Dortmund, so they haven't got the biggest budget in the Championship. So it just shows good coaching, decent signings, anything can happen.
I like you doing a few weeks. I'm going there. You never know, we might win there.
Our away form's been quite good. 2 wins, 1 defeat, very unlucky defeat last minute.
Can we win at Forest, though? I want to win at Forest. I know I've said it already, I don't care. I just want to exercise that ghost. It's just annoyed because they'll change ground one day, I know they will, and it's just going to stay there with me forever. I was there when Clough scored that horrible hat-trick. Sorry.
Records are there to be broken, so it's going to happen one day.
So if we do it, I ban everyone to drink who's there that night. As long as there's water.
Did you see Nedum Manua's comments after the game, where he said interesting comments about signings? He said that it's QPR benefiting, he thinks, because they haven't got any star players. He said they focus more on teamwork. And he said last season we had Charlie Austin, Matty Phillips, Junior Hoylett. But we're not looking to one particular player to get us out of trouble now, and he thinks the team are benefiting from that.
He said Junior Hoylett. Okay,
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, over to you two.
Well, he probably with his experience, I think he feels that there's more harmony across the group, and there's a commitment to the cause. I think that's been shown in performance. And that's often something that, for me, I would associate with the better QPR teams of the past. Having said that, you still do need, in certain games, that little bit of magic. That's someone that can make a difference, often against the better teams when things are tight. And have QPR got enough of that across their ranks? I'm not sure, but what pleases me is, and I'm sure the supporters have embraced it, is we've got a more competitive and more honest group this season, which is good to see. So that's refreshing, and I think that will serve its purpose in this campaign.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes left, so come to ours end of the show. Any final thoughts, Finney?
Just quickly, I'd like to say, I talked about Stambols last week, and it's good to see how this is going, developing, and hopefully we'll get testimony for Stambols. And it's good that the club are meeting the fans to talk about this, to make this happen, because it will happen, it should happen, and there's no reason why it shouldn't happen, because Stambols is in need, and he is a legend, and we should do the right thing, in my opinion. But thank you, QPR, for listening. Thank you for arranging the meeting. Brilliant. That's all I want to say, and thank you again to Rangers for doing this. It means so a lot to a lot of people.
Bradley, can we expect to see you down at QPR this season? How do you think we'll get on?
I think we'll be okay. I'm confident that I'll be covering more games across the season, and just echoing Finney's thoughts there. I really hope that the club continue to improve their involvement of ex-players within the club, those that contributed to success and the good times. We mustn't lose the generation of supporters that remember those golden years. Of course, we've got the 50th year this year of the League Cup success, which I think the club across this season are doing commemorative events, which is fantastic. But there are other periods, other spells as well within the 70s, 80s, 90s, where we've had some fantastic players, some really decent teams that have played a real lovely brand of football that the history of QPR is based on, and we mustn't forget those days.
Alan?
So I'd like to echo Paul's comments about the Stambols testimonial, and I think that's absolutely important that we do that, and very much like Bradley said, that it's important to those of us who've been going down there for a long time. And maybe it should be 2 games. Maybe it should be a game at Loftus Road. Maybe it should be a game at Nottingham Forest as well, where they throw it for us.
You never know, or we could play Brentford. One other thing I'd like to say, Chris, is that we did mention last week the passing of Ray Jones and Daphne Biggs. They'll always be forever in our thoughts.
Yeah, so it's Ray Jones' 9-year anniversary, and I just can't believe it's been that long, really.
No,
it's one of those where you always remember where you were when it happened, and what a player he was as well.
Yeah,
for a young man as well. My R's end. It's always good to have someone on for the first time. Alan, what was your first? Do you remember your first QPR game?
We were talking about this earlier on. So it was the the 24th of March 1967, actually, and it was Darlington, if I remember rightly. We won 4-0. And then it was Easter, so we had the privilege of going on the 25th as well, another home game. I can't remember the opponents that day, but we won 2-0, so I saw 6 goals in 2 days. So who says that too tired is an excuse? 2 games, same team, 2 days.
Same QPR team playing both games?
Yep.
Well, there you go. Been an open or Lars, thank you for listening.
QPR, QPR, Response Rangers.